Hey, Sandy, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Thanks. After a couple of hours of tennis in 100-degree weather, great.
Oh, yeah.
I'm raring to go.
Where are you joining from today?
Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the
Okay, so yeah.
sunniest place in the country.
Yeah, it's real warm down there.
Yeah, it's the humidity. It's
Yeah.
not the dry heat like I used to have in LA.
Yeah. And there was also just the hurricane recently, so we got a lot of
Right.
that.
That missed us, but we did get some rain out of that.
Yeah, we
But
got a ton of rain up here. I'm in Toronto, but I was in Montreal and it was just downpouring.
wait, from the hurricane
Yeah,
down south, you
it'll come
got
all the way
rain
up.
in
Yep.
Toronto?
Yep.
Wow.
All the way. Yeah, it gets wild. You know, the ones that kind of come up and hit along New York and that. Anyways, let's jump into all the exciting things that you have going on because there's a lot going on. And I'm very interested to learn about your history and your past because
Wow.
you've trailblazed a lot for the queer community.
Right. You have like 5 hours? No.
Yeah.
Right. We're gonna have to do like a Reader's Digest version of yeah,
Yeah.
my life in the queer community.
Right. Okay. So I want to start off with what inspired you to co-fund Girl Bar in Los Angeles? And then what were some of the initial challenges you faced in establishing it as the largest lesbian-centric entertainment group in the US?
Well, what was really great about it is that it had a completely like organic beginning. The inspiration was the lesbians in Los Angeles themselves, because myself and my then partner, Robin Gans, we were running a men's video bar called Revolver. And that was a great story because I had just moved to Los Angeles from New York to be an actress, because that's why you move to Los Angeles, right? And I was looking for a job, and finally I was hired after many visits and pushing. I was hired as a shift manager for Revolver. I don't know if you know Revolver. It's on Santa Monica Boulevard, right in the heart of West Hollywood, right in Boys Town. And apparently, the two male current managers were not really happy about the fact that the owners had hired a woman. I mean, even though I was a lesbian and in the gay community, now you're talking, this was 1989. People weren't mixing quite as much back then. You had your men's bars and you had your lesbian bars, and there wasn't a lot of mixing back in those days. So shortly thereafter, like about 2 weeks after I had been hired, and it was about 2 weeks before Gay Pride, they both quit. They just quit, like in protest. And I got a phone call from the owner on a Sunday, pretty much telling me, well, you're the general manager now. And I said, what? And he said, of the bar. And I said, I've only worked there 2 weeks. He said, I'm like, I don't even know anybody's name. And I had to make a quick decision. And the best thing that I did was to tell him I'll take it, but I have to hire my own staff. I have to hire my own management, because I also knew that, I was a marketer, but I had never run a nightclub. I knew nothing about the back end of the house of ordering and payroll and, all that stuff. But my partner did. She had been running restaurants in New York for years and was a total back of the house person. So I hired her. And so the two of us, two lesbians, were running this gay men's video bar in West Hollywood. So what happened was that word kind of got out about that, and lesbians started showing up, started coming to the bar. And we kind of saw that, sort of positive, but again, we were like, oh no, we don't want them to chase away the guys. And so we said, we need to corral them just on one night and let them have their own sort of thing. So Revolver had, a big front video bar, and then it had a small little back bar in the back. So we started, like we picked a night, Thursday night, kind of a slower night for us. And there was an emergency exit door back there. So we had the girls come in through the, we put a security guard there and we had them come in through the emergency door and just hang out in the back bar. And that's how we started Girl Bar. And it just like started growing and growing and growing. So, that was the inspiration. It's sort of, they forced us into it.
It was kind of by happy accident. It's
Yeah,
really interesting. I usually don't insert myself like this, but I kind of have lived a similar-esque vibe when I was in my younger years, in my early 20s. I was kind of at a club that had just opened, and I was the front door staff, like just checking people in.
right.
And something happened, and they're like, "Do you want to be an assistant manager?" And I was like, "Uh, I guess so." And I just kind of
Right.
jumped at it. And there was one night where the security, because it was a very heteronormative security staff, because it was kind of a mixed bar club. It was straight on certain nights, gay on other nights, but the security was all straight, and they roughed up the LGBTQ community. And if you piss us off, we're not going to come back.
Right.
And so
Right.
one night they all left in protest. They just didn't show up one night, but I kind of had an inkling it was happening. And I already had a number of people coming because it was a big place. I need like 14
How did you
staff.
know though?
I
How
I
did
just I felt it, and I was like, okay, I have six ready to go. And I was like, if we can do nine. So I asked my lesbians, I was like, girls, if you can pull
you want
in
to jump
a
in?
couple more, because they had been running security for years at another place. I was like, if you can pull in a couple more, you all get the job. And they pulled them in, and the security, the olds came by, and they looked around like, what's going on? I was like, oh yeah, by the way, you guys,
Yeah,
none of you have your jobs anymore. So
right.
thank you
You're
so much.
fired.
Have a good one. And they thought they were going to be, oh, it was
Right. That was the
wild.
whole thing. I think that these two guys thought that, watch them fall on their face. They're going to need us. We're going to put in the demand, get rid of her. And, and then what ended up, the club at the time was in chapter 11. I mean, they were in reorganization. So it's not like they were doing so great. They were actually doing pretty bad. And Robin and I turned that club around into making, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't think the owners ever expected it, but got to say, I mean, you're working with your partner, and we worked 7 days a week. I mean, because she was supposed to be daytime, I was supposed to be nighttime, but we weren't going to separate. So we worked all day and all night, and until we got it rolling, and then we were able to hire somebody to relieve us, like a shift manager, like I was supposed to be, and there you have it.
Yeah, but I mean, it just goes to show when you serve an underserved portion of the population, we're going to show up. It
Yeah.
always happens. We show up
And
because we're like, oh, this is a really cool place that's talking to me specifically. That's
right. And
just
I think for us, because lesbians heard that there were lesbians running it, they felt like they might be, this might be safe. They're not going to kick us out.
Yeah,
And they were right. I mean, we weren't going to kick them out. Maybe those two guys before me would have kicked them out, you know what I mean? Because no women were going there at
yeah.
all. But I think, when they heard two lesbians were running, we're like, "Well, maybe we can go there, because there was just one little kind of lesbian bar at the time, somewhat iconic, but it was, I hate to say it, but it was a little dumpy. And I think, there were, some of the other lesbians were, looking for something a little more, kind of higher end, I guess.
Yeah. So how do you believe that creating like a dedicated space like this, like Girl Bar, has impacted the overall lesbian community, both locally in Los Angeles and nationally?
Well, I just think that when you create a space, when you give people, when you meet their needs, when you give people what they want and what they're looking for, and you kind of step in and give what they're running around trying to find, and it's organic because it's a lot of it's word of mouth. I mean, we weren't doing any advertising. I mean, we didn't even have a name for it at the time, and we just came up with Girl Bar because they were in a little bar and it was girls, and I said, well, let's just call it Girl Bar, and that really just took off like step by step by step, until, here we are doing, Dinah Shore weekend in Palm Springs and getting, 10,000 women coming from all over the country and all over the world. We were we were partnering with promoters in Germany and Spain and London, and it was really amazing. That was a heyday. I mean,
Yeah.
kind of a little out of it now. I have a great lesbian night in at my club now in New Orleans, and again, sort of like an organic thing. And I've sort of been, they're like my daughters, and I'm kind of teaching them, and we have meetings, and it's like, this works, this doesn't work, and they have some really great ideas, and it's really been fun to sort of nurture like the next up and coming group of lesbians and queer, and it's definitely a little bit different than when I was doing it. So I'm like, good you're doing it, because I think I'm kind of a little out of it these days.
Yeah, even for myself, even I thought my generation, I'm a millennial, I'm 37. I even thought we were quite progressive at my age, but then even just behind me, like just behind me, it was like an explosion happened. And I was just like, okay,
Of a
things have
different
greatly evolved.
way to sort of socialize and be out, and what you call everybody, and how you market, and the types of entertainment that they're interested in. I just it's like, wow.
Yeah.
But it's been really fun. It's a great night. It's called we do it once a month on Friday nights. And it's called Her House, Haus,
Nice.
or Hoos, I guess.
Yes. Haas. I love it. So
Awesome.
you obviously found great success with Girl Bar. It was like you just said, Palm Springs. I believe it was also like Las Vegas at times and just
Oh,
like
we
a
did
really good
Las
party.
Vegas, we did Chicago, we did Phoenix, we did San Diego. I mean, as I think about it, it's exhausting. I mean, I really don't even know how we did all that, but Vegas, we used to literally drive every Saturday night from our Friday night promotion at my club in LA. We had, we were at that club starting in 1990, and we were there till 2010. We were there, almost 30 years. And then when I sold the club, the new owners kicked us out. So then we went over to the Abbey. My friend David Cooley was the owner of the Abbey at the time. I mean, we've known David, from when before he was even in the nightclub restaurant business. He was a banker. Um, and look what he accomplished. Amazing. But then he took us in, and we started doing Wednesday nights at the Abbey. And it was the busiest weeknight that he had. It was great.
So tell me more about you've had this hugely successful girl bar branding, parties all over the place. What was the motivation to then move into acquiring the Bourbon Pub and Parade in New Orleans, which you mentioned, and how does it differ from your previous venture?
Well, I owned the factory and Ultra Suede in LA. So that was the big, it's the old, and the people who are older would know Studio One, which had opened in 1974 and by Scott Forbes. And we actually worked with him. He actually came to Revolver because we moved that Thursday, we still had that Thursday night, but again, it was so crammed and like lying down the block. And then we're like, okay, we need more space. What are we going to do? So, again, this crazy dance trying not to alienate the men. We're like, okay, so how can let's do a once a month so it doesn't feel like, the lesbians are taking over or anything, even though it was far from that. But, we had to be careful. So we took our slowest night, which was Wednesday nights, and we said, let's do the last Wednesday of the night. We'll actually take the whole club. We'll charge a $5 cover because that'll keep the boys out, because they're for sure aren't going to pay to come in, because it was free all the rest of the time. But the girls would pay because, they had now their own space. So that became very successful. We just did a once a month on a Wednesday, and we packed the place. And the then owner of the largest gay men's club, and I mean, and it was a big club, 15,000 square feet. It went from one block to the other. And it's across the street from the Abbey. So it was all like, right there. Um, he came over and said, hey, why don't you come and do Friday nights at my back club? Because the club was so big, it was like a 2/3, 1/3. And there was like double doors that separated them, but you had an entrance on Robertson, you know, excuse me, that you know, you could like go into that club because it used to be a theater. And then we kind of turned it into a nightclub on Friday night. So he said, come over. So we started Girl Bar in 1990. We started Girl Bar at the back lot when it was Studio One in the back lot. And we worked there until 93. Then he sold it to three other gay guys who owned a club, CC Construction Company in Palm Springs. And then through lots of like selling myself, I became the general manager because the club, they were running it into the ground. And of course, we had Girl Bar there, which was very successful. And I go, God, if these guys don't pull this together, we're all doomed. So I didn't really want to have to work that hard, but I lobbied myself to be the general manager because, you know, I knew I could marketing wise, I knew I could help the business. And sure enough, they ended up hiring me to, and I have Jeffrey Sanker. I don't know if you know Jeffrey, you know, he was the white party in Palm Springs. He was a mentor to me, and he was actually doing boys in the front side of the club. And he lobbied for me to become the general manager. So I did. Those three guys left town. They all went back to where they came from and left me holding like, you know, another losing bag. And I had to dig myself, you know, dig the club out of that. And then eventually I ended up buying it from them in 1999. So I mean so this is all the story about how I ended up getting to the Bourbon Pub in New Orleans, because then I ended up owning the factory and Ultra Suede, which we opened in December of 1999. So that went, you know, pretty successfully. We were bang up actually up until 9/11. Then we took a little dive, obviously, because everybody was freaked out. And but then I, you know, kept it going, and we kept Girl Bar going all through till 2010. And then things started, you know, the Abbey got a dance permit. So, you know, now they were, you know, there was like a lot of competition, and I just kind of was starting to run out of juice to keep the place going. So my partner, who was a landlord, and I sold it to this other, you know, group, straight guys, actually, unfortunately. And then I got an offer from the owner of the Bourbon Pub and Parade in New Orleans, because now he knew that I had sold the club and was sort of like a little bit free. Would you come, you know, I want you to be the owner of the Bourbon Pub. Now, the reason for that is that he's also one of my closest friends. I met him in the 80s in New Orleans with the original owner, Gary Menifee. So, I mean, there was just that tie. And then in the early 90s, when he had the club and Oz opened up across the street, he enlisted my help to help him get out of trouble, because at the end of the day, he was an accountant, not really a club person. But when you're a one-horse town, you don't really have to do very much. But now when you have competition, now is when it really counts. Now you got to really start coming up with things and competition, and, you know, how am I going to get people to my place instead of that place? So he called me and he said, I need your help. And, you know, I need you to come help me. I'm getting my clock cleaned by the new shiny club across the street. So I consulted for him for like 3 or 4 years and got all the business back. And he wanted to sell it to me then. And I said, no, you know, I'm not ready for that. And then, of course, he just sort of been waiting. It was a timing thing, you know, waiting. Sooner or later, she's going to give in. And sure enough, when I sold the factory in West Hollywood, called me up right away and he says, come down, you know, I really want you to buy the pub. And I'm like, man, you know, I really don't want to do this. You know, I live in Los Angeles. I don't want to do this back and forth thing. You know, I'm getting old. I was only like 50 at the time, which was already old. And I said, okay, you know, as a friend, I said, I'll come down, you know, and it was, you know, something out of a movie. I met him at his house, and he'd been up all night thinking about what to do and how to get me to say yes. And it was, so he made me the offer. I was at his house, and he made me the offer on a napkin. It was like literally, back in the day in clubs, you would write little things on napkins, phone numbers, whatever. Here's a napkin. Everything was a bev nap back in the
Yeah,
day.
back of the napkin.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And literally he like slid it across the table. And I really was not interested. I was like, I just really don't want to do it. And I opened the napkin and um, I think it was in December. And I said, is January too soon? I was like, that's so B. I said, he really, yeah, he knew how to hook me. So I said, yes. It was one of those like deals you couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
So, yep, it was a
So
deal I just couldn't refuse. So there you were. So then I became the owner of the Bourbon Pub. My anniversary date is when we signed the deal and it closed, and the whole thing was August 17th, uh, 2010. So coming
nice.
up on my 14-year anniversary, which again, wow, how did that happen?
Yeah, right. And so I want to dig into something that you mentioned before about how, the new shiny horse comes into town and then what you do because you obviously have a lot of experience and expertise. How have
Yeah,
you
in,
now,
in, in bringing up dead clubs.
yeah,
That
how have
seems to
you,
be my lot in life. I never get one that's like already doing well. I always get into like something that's like, about to die and close.
right? So how have you adapted the bourbon pub and parade to keep up with these, changing trends? Because you were talking about how, things are very different. How do you keep it fresh now in the LGBTQ nightlife scene?
Well, I mean, one of the things I do, because I really still think it's important. And I just kind of feel like, because I don't go out often, but when I do, because I have kids now, so just that's a game changer. Um, I just feel, really see what the need is there. I'm going, wow, they're kind of missing the mark. I mean, part of why people love the bourbon, first of all, I keep it up. I'm like I walk in, there's a light bulb that's out, there's a paint chip, there's a seat that has a rip. I go nuts. I mean, it's like I just really feel that our community needs to have a place that they feel proud of. That's number one. That that they're proud of that space. Wow, what a great looking space. This is so it's so nice. It's so clean. We keep it clean. It's inviting. But it's also my staff. We really, really work hard on customer service because I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. I mean, you can have a great shiny new club, and if you're being treated like shit, you're still not going back. I'm sorry, am
Yeah.
I allowed to say shit on the
Oh
phone?
yeah, yeah, don't worry.
Oh,
We
okay,
swear. Yeah, yeah.
right, okay, good. All right, I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, God, that be bleeped out. No, that's okay.
Yeah, no, it's good. I really love it because, it's important to maintain these kind of landmark spots because so often we hear of these places closing and that they're not replaced or they close and it's put up by condos.
Right, exactly. Oh my God,
How
so
are
many, so many.
right? So how are you what are you doing to maintain the status landmark of this destination in New Orleans? Like what do
Well,
you hope for the future?
we're bringing in, like a few different, like expanding the audience a little bit. Because, one of the things that I've noticed over the years that has made it much more difficult to maintain being a gay bar. And, quite honestly, sometimes on the weekends, it's hard to tell. We kind of get everybody because we're such a fun nightclub. I really, really focus on good music and DJs. I mean, we are very, very on top of our DJs.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than a bad
Oh my God.
DJ.
Oh my God. I mean, it can ruin your whole night. I mean, if
Ah,
you walk in
100%.
and it's like if the music just is off and it's awful, I mean, you're walking out the door. I mean,
Yeah.
you're just, okay, next, let's see what else is out there.
I always told my DJs, I had one DJ who he always played main stage and people get pissed. And I was like, well, he keeps people in the bar
That's
drinking
it.
and you
Exactly.
don't. So
Right.
either learn how to like top 40 and remixing that because that's what people recognize. And if they recognize they like it, if they like it, they stay. If they like it, they stay, they get more drinks. Or you do your experimental stuff down in the bathroom DJ booth.
It's actually, I have a great story behind that. We were back to the factory, and Boy George was in town and they wanted to do a photo shoot at the club with him. And I said, yeah, sure, love it. So of course, I made sure I was there. And I got to talking to him. And, this is when he began his DJ career. He moved from being, Boy
Yeah.
George singer to now Boy George DJ. And um, yeah, that's my smoke alarm system checking itself.
What, do you got a little, can't hear it on this end, so it's fine.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay, well, it's all done. The check's over. Um, and we were chatting, and I was asking him, like when like while he was in London, what kind of music, what's happening over there, just out of curiosity. And he said, well, the biggest night there, and he's playing it, is a night called Pop Stars. And I went, oh, and this was before, I have to say, in West Hollywood, like I was a trendsetter. I was doing music, and then everybody, all the other smaller clubs, Mickey's and Rage, and this one and that one, all copying everything that I was doing. Because, I was always, from a marketing standpoint, always trying to kind of be a little bit ahead, do something different. Um, and I said, oh, I said pop stars, because at that point it was very circuity, and it was, lots of, music, but yeah, name that tune, good luck. And hum a few bars, good luck with that, but it just kept everybody moving. And I said, not everybody is into that kind of music. I said, there's got to be a faction of gay people, who don't want to take their shirt off. Okay, maybe they don't have that great body, and they don't want to feel self-conscious. And why would you be the only gay guy at a nightclub where everybody's got their shirts off? You wouldn't. So I incorporated. I said, let's do Friday nights. Why don't we do a night where, and let me tell you, I caught hell for this, but it ended up becoming the biggest success. But in the beginning, boy, did I get a lot of crap from the gay boys. Because I did a night, I just took the name right from London. I said, let's do Pop Stars. And if you can't hum it, we don't play it. That was our tagline. So it was all pop music. And I said, okay, and we were trying to appeal to some of those younger boys, but some of those younger boys weren't about the shirts off thing. They
Mhm.
wanted to come and drink, and they weren't like really into the drug thing. So we did that night, and I said, I want pop music, pop music, pop music. I got a couple of DJs that I knew could do it. We sat down. I said, I want to see the playlist every weekend. I want to see the playlist before you go on, because I'm also a DJ. And I said, I want to see it. I want to make sure you guys are sticking with it. And it's going to be a shirts on night. You cannot take your shirt off at the club. Well, yeah. In the beginning, it was a little rough. I was getting a lot of flack from the board. You're a woman, what do you know? Blah, blah, blah. And I go, I'll tell you what I know. I said that not everybody's the same. And I said, you guys aren't coming out on Friday night. Your big night is Saturday night. Okay. I said, so I gotta like appeal to somebody else. And sure enough, let me tell you something, little by little, we had a line down the block for years. People loved it. It was like more relaxed. People all knew the music. Everyone was singing, that kind of thing. And everybody had their shirt on. Everybody, whether
Yep.
you had a good body or not. But it didn't matter because everybody had their clothes on.
Yeah. Let me
And
tell
people
you,
loved
I
it,
would be there. I would have
right?
been there on a Friday night.
Right? You know what I mean?
100%.
I'm like, there are those people, guys. Not everybody's a circuit person. Okay. Not everybody goes to the gym every day. And, it's like, I got to cater to them too. There's,
Yeah.
the whole group out there, and it
That's
worked out great. I got a really cute, and again, I mean, I was smart enough to know I'm not going to be the front person. I got a really cute boy, and we are best friends today. This is 30 years later. Um, and I got a really cute like boy who, like became like a little promoter, and he was a host, and he'd bring people in, and he'd bring other cute boys in, and everybody had their clothes on, and they loved it.
And everybody had a good time.
And everybody had a blast because you actually knew the music.
So, on that same thread, what do you think the future looks like for the LGBTQ community and our historical spaces moving forward?
Um, that's a good question. That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure because I know for us that we're predominantly gay, but we're not entirely gay. Because we have such good music and we have a great dance floor and we have a great light show and we really know how to do it. I mean, because you go to all the other dance clubs, the straight community, and they're okay, but again, they're just missing the mark here and there. And people love, first of all, in the French Quarter, we've got the best dance space. So we get a lot of straight people, but what am I going to do? Turn them away? First of all, can't always tell who's who. Um, so I mean, we try to keep it gay, but because we only market to the gay community, I don't market to the straight community. They kind of find us by way of they just happen to fall on Bourbon Street, so they walk in. So I keep the marketing to the gay community. We have male go-go dancers. We keep the music a little more gay-centric, whatever that is. But it's challenging. It's challenging. Because especially the younger LGBTQ community is more accepted at other places. They're not just going to gay clubs. Because there aren't that many, that I know of. There's not that many left. I mean, there's a few, but there's not nearly like when I was going out.
Hmm.
Were tons, and
Yeah.
now they're just shrinking. Basically, I mean, if you look at major cities around the U.S., I mean, there's like one or two, in some cities. I mean, even in San Francisco, there's not too many left. In L.A. I mean, the Abbey, but let me tell you something. You go to the Abbey and pretty much looks straight. It's not really that gay.
I will say the only place I've ever been out in LA when I was in LA was the Abbey.
And did you think it was like gay? Did it look?
Yeah, it was definitely there was a lot of gays, but it was like coming from Canada and like just our like how we do life and like LA is very different worlds. And so when I walked in, I was like, oh, I don't know if I exactly fit in here this vibe, but it was fun. I really enjoyed the
And why
music.
did you feel like that?
Well, a lot of people, why did you go to LA? Become an actress? Why does everybody live in like there's a lot of very attractive people and it can be very intimidating.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he's a really good looking guy. I wouldn't have worried about that.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been absolutely wonderful walking down our history of queer spaces and how important they are and what they mean to our community. I don't think they're ever going to totally disappear. I think they will continue to evolve and grow. And I hope that people still recognize that even if it's not drinking, because I know that there is kind of a lean towards not a lot of drinking in the younger generations, but even if it's not drinking, still maintaining queer spaces and being able to socialize and do that is still very important. So thank
Well,
you.
that's one of the things that I've actually started doing is really looking into the NA stuff. I've brought in some really great NA beers, because I do see that trend, interestingly enough.
Mhm.
A lot of energy drinks. And there's actually that has now been allowed in New Orleans is CBD drinks.
Oh yeah, we've legalized all cannabis stuff in Canada, so that's
No, but I
great.
mean, I tried it and I went to sleep. I was like, okay, how is this like seriously working in a nightclub? I'm like, I don't want people sleeping. I'm like, I'm trying to get them like excited and fun. I totally pass out when I drink that stuff.
It depends on like what strain you're doing and what type it is and all that kind of stuff. There's ones that are more uppity, there's ones
Still
that are
not sold on
sleepy.
that. I'm like, how are they doing that? Yeah, but I mean, I'm carrying it, but I'm still not sold that that's like the wave of the future.
Right.
Uh,
Well, we'll see. Only time will tell, right?
right. No, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well,
So,
thank you so much, Sandy, for being on the podcast. When I've never been to New Orleans, but when I
what?
do get
What?
there, I know it's on my list. It's on my
Fun. You
list.
go to LA, but you won't come to New Orleans? You'll feel much more comfortable in New Orleans.
Right. So when I get there, I will be coming to the Bourbon Pub and Parade, and I expect to have the best time of my life.
Oh, yeah, I can guarantee that. And I
Phenomenal.
just want to say that I'm just really happy to be a part of the Bourbon Pub and Parade history as the third owner. I worked under the first owner. The second owner, it was my friend, and I helped him, bring it up that we're going to be celebrating 50 years.
That's
So, and
amazing.
we're still cranking. So we're really looking forward. We're working on entertainment for that weekend. Taylor Dane is a friend, and she just turned me down. She's like, "Bitch, you're gonna need like a lot of money to get me there." And I'm like, "Wow, thanks. Okay, next." So we're working on some entertainment. So it's going to be a really great weekend. It's the
Nice.
first weekend in November.
Phenomenal. Well, thank you so much for doing that work and for keeping these landmarks alive for all of us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I just hope I can keep it going.